Okay, this is Thomas Casale with SportsGrumblings.com, and today we're going to break down the receiver position in the NFL draft. One of the deepest drafts for receivers that I can remember. I mean, just a lot of good quality players at that position. Led at the top by Michael Floyd from Notre Dame and Justin Blackmon from Oklahoma State. If you've read my stuff, you know that I've been on Floyd since the beginning of the draft process. He's been my #1 receiver the entire way. I love his route running. I love the way he goes up and gets the football. And this is no slight on Blackmon. I mean, Floyd is #1 because I think he's a top 10 player in this draft. I think he's going to be a special receiver. Just everything you look for in a receiver, Floyd has. I love the way he runs at a cornerback, disguises his routes. And that's key in the NFL, is disguising your routes. That's not something people talk about a lot. But if corners know where you're going to go before you go, that's easy for them to cover. And Floyd does a good job at disguising that. He goes up and gets the ball. I compared him kind of to Larry Fitzgerald. Now, I mean, Fitzgerald is a phenomenon. He's a special player. I'm not saying he's Fitzgerald, but the way in the red zone he goes up and grabs the ball at its highest point, that's similar to Fitzgerald. And it's interesting because there's talk that he could go to Arizona with Fitzgerald. And let me tell you something, that would be a scary receiver tandem in Arizona, especially in the red zone. I mean, even Kevin Kolb can't screw that up. So I love Michael Floyd in this draft. I just think to me, he is the elite receiver in this class. Now, Justin Blackmon, listen, it's hard to judge receivers in the Big 12 because you turn on Oklahoma State Baylor, you go watch that game, and you tell me how you're supposed to be impressed with any offensive player on that field. Everybody is wide open. Brandon Weeden throws to Blackmon. I mean, this guy had 10 catches in the first quarter in that game, and he was not covered. So it's hard to break guys down in the Big 12. I remember when Michael Crabtree came out, one scout said, I can't evaluate him because nobody ever covers him. And that's true in the Big 12. I mean, it's great football to watch during the regular season because it's so exciting. But when it comes draft time, it's a little harder to break down, especially receivers, because they don't play any bump and run. They're all 15 yards off. And in the NFL, you're not going to see that all the time. But you cannot. What Blackmon has put up the last 2 years, those numbers are scary. And this guy can play. One of the things I like about Blackmon is, he kind of reminds me of Michael Irvin in a way where Irvin wasn't a speedster, so he didn't always have great separation from corners, but he did such a good job with his body control to make sure he always caught the ball when a corner was on his hip, and Blackmon does the exact same thing. He might not be open by 10 yards, but you get the ball near him, and he's going to come down with it. He is a very good player. Now, people have asked me, is he as talented as Des Bryant coming out of Oklahoma State? To me, that's not even close. Des Bryant was one of those once-in-a-lifetime receivers. I'm not going to get into why the Cowboys won't throw him the football in the second half of games. You can go to my blog, or you can go to SportsGrumblings.com to read that stuff. But Des Bryant, to me, is one of the best receivers to come out in the last decade, talent-wise. So I don't think Blackmon is in that range. He put up better numbers because he played with a pro-style quarterback with Brandon Weeden at Oklahoma State, and I think he's a very good NFL prospect. So it'll be interesting to see where he goes, because if he goes to Cleveland or St. Louis, he'll be the top receiver right off the bat there. So it'll be interesting to see how he handles that, and especially getting off press coverage early in his career. A couple other of the first-round guys. Kendall Wright. Now, here's another guy, Big 12, kind of hard to judge, but Kendall Wright, to me, was the fastest receiver in this draft. And I don't care about 40 times. I'm talking about football times. I'm talking about helmets and pads on. His speed was amazing. He didn't lose any speed in and out of his cuts. He's just a big play waiting to happen. So when I watch the tapes, when I watch football games, I like Kendall Wright. Now, here's the problem. Report comes out, he's got 16% body fat. That's horrifying, okay? I've been a certified personal trainer for years. That is horrifying for a kid with that body type. He has look at Kendall Wright's arms the next time you see him play. He looks like Kevin McHale. His body is built long. I have no idea what he's doing, why he has 16% body fat, but I can tell you if that's the case, that means he's lazy. That means he didn't prepare for the draft process, and I don't get guys like that. Do they not like money? I don't know what the problem is that you can't be in shape for the draft. But again, I don't get to interview these guys. I don't get to see them in the closed doors. I just watch them. Football-wise, love Kendall Wright. If behind the closed doors he's lazy, if he's gaining weight, then he's going to fall in the draft because there's no way that guy should have 16% body fat. a guy who's really moving up the draft boards is Ruben Randall from LSU. You know, people have compared him to kind of Hakeem Nicks, and I think that's a fair comparison. I think Nicks was better overall coming out of college, but it's not really Randall's fault because LSU throws the ball once every 75 offensive plays. I mean, if you watch a game from 1972 between Ohio State and Michigan, you're basically watching LSU's offense in 2012. So Randall did not run a lot of complicated routes at LSU. That's my one negative with him, because I think if you're not used to running routes, you can contribute as a rookie, but you still need to polish and define your game a little more. And that's how I feel about Randall. I think he's got amazing physical ability. I think he's going to be a great player in the NFL, but is it going to be as a rookie? That I don't think so. I mean, it depends where he goes. He can contribute a little bit, but I still think he needs some more polish. Very good prospect. I just look at him as a quarterback like Tannehill. I don't know if he's ready to come in and be an impact player right away. 2-3 years down the line, then you might have yourself a Pro Bowler. Another guy in that same category is Stephen Hill out of Georgia Tech. Now, I did not get any tape on Stephen Hill, so I wasn't able to watch him like I was the other receivers. But the thing with him is, one thing I do know is the option offense. I know the option offense like the back of my hand. And like Demaryius Thomas coming out of Georgia Tech, they run 3 routes basically in the option offense. They run an in route, they run an out route, and they run a fly route. And the coaches can tell you all the stuff that they run complicated. They don't. Okay, they do not. They block, they run simple routes, they make big plays. That's what you do in an option offense. Now Thomas, who I loved coming out of Georgia Tech, had more physical ability, I think, just pure physical ability. Now, Stephen Hill certainly has physical talent. He made some of the most remarkable catches you'll ever want to see last year, including a one-handed stab against North Carolina that may be the best catch I've ever seen. Now, here's the problem. Later in the game, he drops a ball right in his hands on a fly route. He has had problems with drops on easy passes. And the thing, you know who he reminds me of is Brandon Lloyd. For his first few years in the league, Brandon Lloyd would make some of the most remarkable catches that you've ever seen. Then he would drop balls right in his hands. Now, Lloyd finally, he admitted he didn't work as hard when he got in the NFL, and he kind of put it all together. That's what I see when I see Stephen Hill. I see a guy who could be Brandon Lloyd with a little fine-tuning and a little polish. Now, again, where's he going to go as a rookie? Is he going to go to Houston? Because if he goes to Houston, then he can contribute. Because you got Andre Johnson on one side, you're going to ask him to basically run fly routes and things like that to clear things out, be a Torrey Smith kind of player for Baltimore. And I think that's who he's kind of like, Torrey Smith. Torrey Smith, I think, is going to be a very good receiver. But as a rookie, basically, they had Torrey Smith running fly routes. And that's what I see with Hill as well. Very good upside. And again, I didn't see the tape on him. But I think you got to give him some time. Here's a guy I really, really, really like. And that's A.J. Jenkins out of Illinois. To me, one of the best receivers in the draft. And he's moving up, let me tell you. From all the reports coming out, he could be a top 35 pick. He was supposed to be a 3rd, 4th round draft pick. There's no way he's going in round 3 or 4. You watch what he did at Illinois with some just awful quarterback play. Always having a reach behind him. Never catching the ball in stride, yet he still made big plays. He has great quickness, great speed, great change of direction. He runs good routes. He's got very good hands. And this is the type of guy, I mean, let's be honest. Most people aren't going to watch Illinois and Northwestern play on Saturday with all the big games going on. But this is a guy who put up huge numbers for a 4 or 5 game stretch in the Big Ten. And then the passing game at Illinois kind of went down the toilet. The whole team actually went down the toilet. But himself, A.J. Jenkins, has all the skills to come in. And I'm really interested to see where he goes. Because if he goes to the Miami in round 2, a place like that, he's going to come right in and he's going to move up my fantasy board big time. So that's one of the guys I definitely think fantasy owners should keep an eye on, A.J. Jenkins out of Illinois. Another guy I really like, and he would have been a much higher draft pick if he hadn't gotten hurt, is Ryan Broyles out of Oklahoma. Now, I know we're not supposed to compare black guys to white guys, but to me, he's the closest thing I've seen to Wes Welker. Every white receiver in the world is compared to Wes Welker. Well, here's a guy who really reminds me of him. It's Ryan Broyles. He's just gonna eat people up in the slot. Again, Big 12 teams played off him a lot, but you can see the route running, you can see the quickness in his cuts, and that's what he's going to do in the NFL. He's going to be a slot receiver. He's going to be a Victor Cruz. He's going to be a Wes Welker. And again, these type of players are in vogue. And he hurt his knee late in the year, Broyles, and it was a tough injury. This guy caught 12, 14 balls a game at Oklahoma. He was just unstoppable. and you're looking in that third round area, if you're looking for a receiver, you ain't going to find a guy with more upside than Ryan Broyles. He's a very smart guy. Here's someone I think he can come right into an offense, contribute right away. Let's look at the team like the Dallas Cowboys. Basically, they have 2 NFL receivers. They have Des Bryant and they have Miles Austin. They don't have anybody else. That's it. They have 2 NFL-capable receivers. You give them Ryan Broyles, he's going to play as a rookie. So there's a guy, Broyles, you want to keep an eye on where he goes. He could be very dangerous out of the slot, and in 2 or 3 years, I think he'll be one of the best slot receivers in the NFL. Now, a guy I was extremely high on coming into the season was Alshon Jeffrey out of South Carolina. Actually, before the season started, he was my number 2 pick on the board behind Andrew Luck. And I'll be honest with you, I wasn't alone. There was a lot of people who had this guy in the top 5, top 10. And since then, he gained 20 pounds. He just turned everybody off at the NFL Combine. He's refused to work out. And it's just been a disaster. It's been an absolute disaster. And here's my theory on those type of guys. You take them off your draft board, you win more times than you lose. Because if you can't get a guy that comes to the NFL Combine and treats that as a job interview and treats that as the most important day of his life, because that's what it is. Doesn't matter what you've done in college. That NFL Combine, those days are the most important days of your life. And if you can't get a guy that takes that stuff seriously, then I don't want him on my team. I'm sorry, I don't care what I saw on tape. That's just, I mean, he's gaining weight, he's turning people off. Now, will he come in the NFL and could he be a big-time player? Sure, he's got the talent. But remember, guys like Randy Moss and Warren Sapp dropped in the draft because they smoked weed. And I don't care if you smoke weed. You know why? Most of those guys smoking weed anyway. It doesn't matter to me. I don't care about that stuff. Can you play on the football field? Are you mentally there? And when I see Alshon Jeffrey, I see a guy, it's going to be up to him. He lost all that weight to do what? To run a 40? Great. Are you going to put on 25 more pounds after you run the 40? Besides, he's not playing at 213. That's not his natural weight. So you can look at him running that 40 and say, oh, now he's in shape. He's not going to be 213. The more I see of him, the more I think he could be a Mike Williams kind of player, Mike Williams for Seattle, where he's not going to create a lot of separation. He could be a red zone guy, but I just don't see him being the elite prospect I thought he was going to be. And another guy in that same class is Mohamed Sanu, coming out of Rutgers. Unbelievable hands, unbelievable size, fends guys off with his body, creates separation that way. I just wish he had a little more speed, because he just does not have that speed, and he actually looks like a tight end. And the thing with Sanu I'm a little afraid of is that he could be one of those tweener guys where they're not sure if he should be a tight end or receiver. I mean, he catches everything thrown his way. So if he goes to the right system, I think he's gonna catch a ton of passes. I mean, he's never going to provide a big play for you. He just does not get down the field. So that's another guy in that Alshon Jeffrey type of class where they can catch the ball, they can do some things, but they have some restrictions. And finally, one of my sleepers that I really like is T.Y. Hilton out of Florida International. A lot of people didn't see Hilton play in college because, let's be honest, who's watching Florida International? But the games I saw with him, I mean, you're talking about a kid who stood out, and I'm talking about games against Alabama. Okay, I'm not talking about games against North Texas and Middle Tennessee. I'm talking Alabama. And this kid stood out. He's a small guy. Again, he's going to be a slot receiver. But the other thing, one of the most dynamic return men, along with Joe Adams of Arkansas, 2 guys that are going to guaranteed be on an NFL roster and contribute as rookies as return men, the 2 best return men in the draft. So you're going to get Hilton. He's going to start off as a return guy, maybe a little bit of receiver, but he's a guy 2 or 3 years down the road. If you're looking keeper league stuff, if you're looking for a guy to kind of take later on, I would suggest T.Y. Hilton. He's got a ton of upside. So that's it for receiver. You can catch my stuff at sportsgrumblings.com. You can come into my blog, thepigskinguy.com, or you can catch me on Twitter at thepigskinguy. Ton of draft stuff, ton of fantasy stuff, fantasy drafts, fantasy rankings updated every week. Just a ton of stuff there. So come by and check it out.